Every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and wanted to have an open discussion.
My name's Patrick Christie's. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Hello, good morning. Hope you're well. Live from Washington, D.C., this is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. Tonight, a stunning intervention from a former Prime Minister. Gordon Brown launches a blistering attack on Peter Mandelson, accusing him of betraying Britain. And breaking in the past few moments, it's been revealed the former US Ambassador Mandelson not only received a five-figure payout after leaving office here in Washington, but had a loan personally approved from Jeffrey Epstein to purchase a £1 million London mansion.
This president has been a huge champion of free speech. No surprise to see the vice president share that value. And, you know, our leadership understands this because President Trump was himself a target of censorship.
Free speech, refugees. That was the US Undersecretary of State Sarah Rogers speaking there to this show a few weeks ago. She's now saying tonight that victims of censorship in Britain should seek asylum in America. So tonight I'm asking, would censorship drive you to leave Britain for the US?
One of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. What is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, you know, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK.
Advisor has accused the Home Office of attempting to silence him after he warned about the threat of Islamism. Also tonight.
I understand you know Savannah Guthrie. What is the federal government doing right now? Is the FBI now leading the investigation?
7 days missing. A desperate search continues for NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. We'll bring you key updates on that mystery tonight. That's as the FBI probes another new message. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Good morning. Thank you for your company. Hope you're well. In the Late Show Live studio tonight is my panel, the political commentator Hilary Fordwich and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith. And in London is Reform UK's London mayoral candidate Layla Cunningham. Layla, good morning. Thanks for your company. We'll catch up with you in just a few ticks later in the show. Right, of course, there's one big breaking news story tonight, and it's Lord Peter Mandelson. Is he a Lord anymore? Has he been stripped? I think he's still a Lord, isn't he?
Should be stripped.
It's been revealed that the former US ambassador has received personal approval from Jeffrey Epstein for the purchase. Well, it wasn't quite personal approval, it was advice on how to get a massive whopping mortgage to purchase an £8 million London mansion. In more emails released by the US Justice Department tonight, the Sun newspaper is reporting that the former Labour Minister, Mandelson, asked Epstein for advice about a loan of £4 million at 3% interest. He basically said, and you can see the pictures here on your screen now, if I want this house, which I do, I'll have to borrow £4 million from the bank at 3% interest. Do you think that's all right? The revelation, despite reports that Mandelson claimed he barely knew Epstein during the vetting process for the US ambassadorial role, which of course he was sacked from in September. But there's more, because former Prime Minister Gordon Brown, a man who, by the way, I don't think has much weight anymore after he sold our gold reserves at rock bottom prices some years ago. Anyway, he's now urged Sir Keir Starmer to, quote, clean up the party and government or risk paying a heavy price. And breaking tonight, Deputy Prime Minister David Lammy, he's joined Angela Rayner in claiming he warns the Prime Minister against originally appointing Lord Mandelson. Well, it's all right now saying that, isn't it? And here's another kicker. The Telegraph tomorrow is reporting that those close to Sir Keir Starmer have said he's devastated about the scandal and is wrestling over whether to continue as Prime Minister, something Downing Street denies, claiming he's committed to, quote, delivering for the country. Well, he's certainly taking his time if he is intending on delivering for the country. You've had 19 months, Prime Minister. But how can a PM continue when there's a clear coup taking place behind closed doors? This week, we've already heard that Angela Rayner could be preparing to launch a leadership bid, and now, tonight, it looks like the eco-zealot-in-chief, the bacon muncher extraordinaire, Ed Miliband, is plotting to run again to be Prime Minister, basing his leadership model on, wait for it, New York's left-wing mayor, I'd argue he's more than left-wing, he's a massive commie, Zoran Mamdani. And if all that wasn't enough to prove there's a crisis at the top of government, it's tonight being reported that Lord Mandelson secured a pretty cushy exit payment from his US ambassador job, equivalent to 3 months' salary from the Foreign Office after he was forced out in September. The figure is believed to be anywhere between £38,000 and £55,000. All right for some. That payout is now thought to be being reviewed in the wake, of course, of the recent revelations. My panel are here, Hilary Fordwich and Maddie Smith, and also in London, Layla Cunningham. Good evening, panel. Good evening, Layla. Maddie, what do you make of this nonsense? I said earlier that the Epstein files were released to bring down the Trump administration, but it seems to be doing the opposite across the Atlantic, unintended.
Well, it's certainly having an effect on Starmer's government. I think this would be something that would be difficult to survive if Sir Starmer was in a better political space. But he was already treading water, given the fact that a lot of folks were unhappy with his handling of immigration, a lot of folks were unhappy with his handling of the economy. And you add this on top of it, you can easily see both the public saying, what are you doing here? You have not been doing a great job at leading our country. And you're going to have folks within Labour start seeing blood in the water and saying, "Look, I can do a better job than this."
They already are. It's like shark bait off the south coast of Johannesburg with great white circling. Hilary, what's your take?
Well, the thing I think is the most damning about this is it's consistent with all of his behaviour previously. He does U-turns on his policy, and now he's U-turning on his word. And the fact that David Lammy is coming out and saying this, I'm sure there'll be a lot of other people. He was warned before, and it doesn't matter if he wasn't warned. He loses either way. Because why? Mandelson had already been forced to resign twice before in his political career. So you actually put into office somebody that has that much controversy surrounding them, that's had that many failings. How many people have had to resign twice? And you take this risk. Although I do understand he was advised to take on Mandelson because Mandelson had this good rapport with those in the US and supposedly could get along well with President Trump. But I think it shows disastrous judgment and is consistent with all the U-turns Keir Starmer's made previously.
Yeah, Layla, front page of The Sun is their exclusive tomorrow. The Sun on Sunday, pedo-backed £8 million Mandy pads. So it says Jeffrey Epstein gave his approval for Peter Mandelson for the purchase of an £8 million London mansion. So he didn't borrow the money from Epstein, he didn't give him a guarantor for the loan, but Mandelson basically asked for his advice and said, I'm about to buy this house, do you think it's a good deal? What do you make of that?
Well, I mean, it just shows how close he was. You know, not only was he feeding him financial information about the country before it was made public, but he was also actually obviously getting financial advice from him. The thing is, it's interesting because I don't know about you, Leo, but if I knew that a friend of mine was best friends with one of the worst and most prolific paedophiles in my lifetime, I would stop being friends with them. I would not, and I would definitely not elevate them to a higher position. Whereas Starmer kind of knew that. He knew that he stayed in his flat after he was convicted. He knew that Mandelson stayed in Epstein's flat, and he kind of said, you know what, that's all right, Mandy. I'm going to look over it, and I'm still going to appoint you as ambassador. It is not a vetting issue, like he's trying to say. It's a judgment issue. And my question is, why did he overlook all the warnings he got from the security services? Who told him he must appoint Mandelson? And does he answer to someone else? And does he still represent the best interests of the country? I don't think he does.
Yeah, Layla, for me, this story's not about Mandelson anymore. I don't really care about Mandelson anymore. We know he's a weirdo, whatever, he's finished. It's about Keir Starmer. Why is Keir Starmer so arrogant that he's still in the job tonight? He should have gone, I said to Alex earlier, he should have gone after a litany of gaffes in recent months since he took power in July. This, though, should have been nailed on certified. What is up with Starmer? Why is he so arrogant to think anybody wants him in the job still? His own party's turned on him.
Well, I thought he'd be gone the day it came out a few days ago. I was waiting, you know, excitedly looking at my ex. The problem is, Leo, is who's going to replace him, right? So now they're floating Angela Rayner, who resigned for a scandal. So they're going to replace a leader who resigned for a scandal with another leader that had to resign for avoiding tax purposes. And I feel most of the front bench has been mired in some kind of scandal. The thing is, it's not really a personnel issue, Leo. It's an integrity issue, and that goes to the top of both parties. And that is the arrogance, because you find the political class, if I do something wrong, if you and I do something wrong, the system crushes us. Whereas you feel when the political class do something wrong, you know, they close ranks, they call him a man of integrity, as Gordon Blair did, and he was misled, and they make all kinds of excuses for them, and they feel they're untouchable.
Yeah. Do you know what? Something I've learned in the last week or two, and I know many viewers will be thinking, well, it took your time, Ben, but I've learned that I really dislike celebrities. I don't want to hear any celebrities or sports stars opining about government policy or immigration. I don't care, because you know nothing about normal people. And also, for the most part, I really dislike politicians. I think they are slimy, I think they're grubby. Apologies to you, Layla, I'm not including you in that, but I'm saying for the most part, these career politicians who go to Oxford or Cambridge, they study PPE, they get a job in a think tank, they then get a cushy elevated seat somewhere with no experience of the real world, and then they all converge amongst each other for decades and decades, doing deals. They make me sick.
And
then they lecture us on ethics and integrity.
That elites. This is basically about elite class.
Sorry, Hillary, then later.
No, sorry, I would add on to that. It's about elites, because a lot of these are just very extremely wealthy people, billionaires. What about the founder of Apollo? You know, he was all these PE guys, these people that have so much money. What about Jeff Bezos? And, you know, they actually have so much money that they think that they can get away with it.
Yeah. Sorry, lady, go on. Sorry to interrupt you.
Because I wouldn't necessarily blame the rich. You know, I think there are rich people who have integrity, who've worked hard to get there. I think it is more of an elite class, and not necessarily they're not necessarily rich, but it's like Ben said, you know, they went to Oxford, they went to Cambridge, and they all congregate. And the worst is that they think they know better than the people they were elected to serve. And that's what is the most disgusting. They look down on us and talk at us as opposed to serving. It's not become about duty anymore. It's become about self-preservation politics in the UK.
Yeah, and one of those who I'm not a massive fan of is David Lammy. He's on the front page of the Telegraph tomorrow saying, Lammy, I warned Starmer about Mandelson. Well, guess what? This is what David Lammy previously said about Lord Mandelson. Take a look.
Well, Peter Mandelson is a man of considerable expertise. He's the right man for this moment to be our ambassador.
All right, well, Louise Mensch, former Conservative MP, and again, I didn't include you in my rant against politicians, Louise. I'm a big fan of yours, but for the most part, people like Lammy, just a massive hypocrite. You know, front page of the Telegraph saying, I warned Starmer about how much of a wrong and Mandelson was. Well, you weren't saying that a few months ago, whenever that clip was.
Yeah, that's a collective responsibility, what we just saw there. I don't mind the fact that he said that Mandelson's great, even when Mandelson actually wasn't great. What I find so contemptible is this is a guy who's failed at the Foreign Office, and Keir Starmer threw him a lifeline, made him Deputy Prime Minister, and what happens? He throws Keir Starmer under the bus just as soon as he can. If David Lammy has got any fantasies about becoming Prime Minister, he should set them aside now. I find it hilarious, like this horrible list of who might actually replace Keir, when all you want to do is get rid of Keir Starmer, and then you have to say, well, shall we hold tight to nurse for fear of something worse, as my good friend Jacob Rees-Mogg would say. Because look what the bond market said when they thought that Angela Rayner might take over. Bonds immediately rose because the markets do not trust these ultra left-wing people. And as for Ed Miliband, more like a millstone. This is a man who's got so little integrity, he knifed his own brother, to get to the top of the Labour Party. We don't need a man like that in number 10. No thanks.
Yeah, and in The Sun on Sunday tomorrow, Louise, they are reporting that Ed Miliband thinks that because Angela Rayner is still under investigation for her own tax scandal, that she, by default, can't possibly be in the running to replace Keir Starmer. So he is. Two questions for you. Will Keir Starmer step down? He doesn't have to. He's, you know, he can stay in the job for the next 3 or 4 years, however long we've got left. Will he step down, and who will realistically be in the running to replace him?
Right, yes, he definitely will step down, and the only question is when. He might do it now, which would be, in a way, a bit spiteful, because what most people expect is going to happen is that he will stay till after the local elections in May. He will take the massive hits of the Tories and Reform coming up on the inside and taking all of those council seats, and then he will resign, and the new leader gets to say, oh well, new sheriff in town, let's put all that behind us. If Keir Starmer resigns right now, he's actually storing up quite a lot of trouble for the Labour Party, because the new leader is the one that will have to take it on the chin with what will undoubtedly still be an absolute massacre in the May local elections. As for who could win, Miliband's got a bit of support in the Parliamentary Labour Party, but Labour MPs, you know, turkeys don't vote for Christmas. They know that he cannot possibly win a general election. In my opinion, there's only 3 people that could realistically succeed Keir Starmer with any chance of success. One of them is Wes Streeting. Another one is Shabana Mahmood, who I've got quite a bit of respect for, actually. And the third one, and I think would be the best in this moment, is John Healey, the Defence Secretary. I think he's a dark horse, if you like, a name that you don't hear thrown about so much. But I think he's got a decent amount of support, and I think the country would recognise him as a sensible, moderate, and at the very least, a steady hand on the tiller. So that's my dark horse tip, John Healey.
Good shout with John Healey. Yeah, great shout with Healey. I liked Wes Streeting before he did his U-turn on the puberty blockers trial. I still like him. I think he's solid. He's got the balls to come onto GBNews and other channels and debate his ideas. John Healey, though, great shout. As you said, maybe in this sort of chaotic time, he would be a calming presence at the top of government. Ian Duncan Smith was on the Late Show Live last night, I think it was. This is what he said about who he thinks will be the next Labour leader. Take a look.
We were talking earlier today, and you shocked me when you said you thought who would lead the Labour Party after Starmer. Tell us who you think that could be.
Well, I don't know, but it is definitely the case that the present Environment Secretary may well make it if he puts his hat in the ring. He's overwhelmingly popular.
Louise, who do you think Reform UK and the Tories, OK, we'll throw the Greens in there as well because they're polling well, who do they want to be Labour leader?
Oh, I don't know. I think they would like any of the current set of frontrunners. Ed Miliband, fantastic. I'm sure Layla will be out there throwing a big party. She can let me know if I'm right. If Ed Miliband became leader of the Labour Party, it would be open season. It's Kemi Badenoch, honestly. It is Kemi and she alone who can take the scalp of Keir Starmer and take the credit for that. She got him to admit at the dispatch box that he had always known when he appointed Keir Starmer that friendship had continued. The problem isn't that he was lied to. The problem is that he wasn't lied to. Mandelson admitted, I'm still friends with Keir Starmer. So yeah, Miliband would be a disaster. Rayner would be a disaster. She is considered by many to be a tax cheat, and at the very least, she's still under investigation. And who else? David Lammy? I mean, give over. This is a guy who went on Mastermind and said that Henry VII succeeded Henry VIII. No, I don't think so. I think you've got only those 3 that could be any good. But if anybody else succeeds, both the Tories and Reform are going to absolutely throw a party, Ben. They really are.
All right, well, let me ask the Reform representative tonight. Louise, thank you very much. Layla, are you still there? Who would you want to be the next Labour leader? Who does Reform fancy?
There's only one Prime Minister that we think should be the next Prime Minister, and that's Nigel. And it's time the Labour Party
but who do you want to be Labour leader?
Honestly, Ben, I don't think it makes a difference. It's not about personnel, it's about ideology and integrity. And we are run by a socialist authoritarian government who has no integrity. No wonder they want a silent speech. They don't want any of their scandals to come out. They have so much to hide.
Yeah, all right, well said. Yeah, I'm really sorry to go off on one tonight. I know it's early in the morning, it's a Saturday night, it's not very good party vibes, but I am just really sick of politicians and celebrities this week. I don't want to hear from any of them. There are some very good, genuine MPs. So Peter Bottomley, who was my MP down in Sussex for many years, he was a dedicated, great MP, really good man who cared about the job. And I'm sure there are dozens of others, but for the most part, our leaders, successive governments in this country have really let the country down. They're grubby, they're corrupt, you call them right honourable, and Lord of the Realms. They're anything but. They make a mockery of those titles.
Margaret Thatcher would never have done any
of this. Maggie would be rolling in her grave. Lord Mandelson, there we go, Lord Mandelson. He's previously denied any wrongdoing in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, stating, "I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes. Like everyone else, I learned the actual truth about him after his death." He added that he'd relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. There's been no suggestion by police that Lord Mandelson is suspected of any criminal offence, and searches of properties linked to him do not imply guilt or wrongdoing. A Downing Street spokesperson also told GB News Peter Mandelson's actions are unforgivable. He lied to the Prime Minister, hid information that has since come to light, and presented Jeffrey Epstein as someone he barely knew. They add, "We have already strengthened the ministerial code, giving the independent advisor greater powers to launch investigations, introduced a new monthly register of gifts and hospitality, established a new ethics commission, and ensured that ministers who break the rules cannot receive severance payments." OK, I don't really care. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, a former government advisor has accused the Home Office of attempting to silence him after he warned about the threat of Islamism. But also tonight,
this president has been a huge champion of free speech. No surprise to see the vice president share that value. And, our leadership understands this because President Trump was himself a target of censorship.
Know your thoughts on this, gbnews.com/your say. Would you, at home, my lovely viewers and listeners of GB News, would you seek refuge in the United States if you were persecuted for free speech in Britain? There's certainly been a few people who would fit that bill. I'll tell you why that's now a very real possibility in just a tick. Don't go anywhere. This is The Late Show Live.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
The fact that Trump made a good start, no.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I I understand you know Savannah Guthrie. What is the federal government doing right now? Is the FBI now leading the investigation?
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. A desperate search continues for NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. Still no clues, still no sign of where she is. We'll bring you the key updates on that story tonight as the FBI probes yet another new message that's coming up very shortly. But first tonight, here's the big question. Would you seek refuge in the United States over concerns for free speech in Britain? Because that's the solution being put forward by the US Undersecretary of State, Sarah Rogers, who has today told the Daily Telegraph that, quote, anyone persecuted by their government for peacefully expressing their views, including British citizens, may present themselves at a US embassy or consulate to seek information about applying for refugee protection. Interesting concept. Lots of you on gbnews.com/your say actually saying, no, I wouldn't, because you love Britain, you love your country, and you wouldn't leave your country. I'm with you on that. I wouldn't leave Britain. I know I'm in the US now, but I'm here temporarily trying to shine a light in America on Britain to, you know, kind of compare how they're doing things here. Anyway, I wouldn't leave Britain, so I get you. But let's get the thoughts of my panel. Political commentator Hilary Forwich and the Democrat strategist Maddie Smith. Hilary, you ditched Britain, didn't you?
Well, I didn't.
You did
ditch
a runner.
My daddy was offered a job here, so that was very different.
You didn't ditch
it wasn't me by choice, but I must say that I've had a great life here and lots of opportunities and a tremendous life. But what I would say is that every year now, over 12,000 people are arrested for their online postings and their breach of, you know, in terms of free speech. That's absolutely ghastly. In 2023, it was 12,183. That's more like Russia. Like, what has England become? And I must say, it's not the country that we left. It's a completely different nation now, and I think that's why the administration, I don't blame them really for saying this, because if you can't post something on Facebook and you can't say something online, and look what happened to Lucy Connolly. That was an absolutely ghastly example. She actually retracted what she said, she took it down, and she was then sent to prison, and that should never happen.
I'm a big fan of Lucy, but her critics would argue she admitted it, she pled guilty in court, and she called for the burning down of asylum hotels.
But that kind of penalty to go to jail like that, when you see rapists and you see child molesters and they're let out immediately and they don't even serve their sentences.
Complete stitch up. Hilary, just whilst I've got you as the sort of Brit-American, when did it start going wrong in Britain?
That's a good question. I can't answer that after. I mean, definitely, and I don't mean to just say this as a Conservative, but it was definitely after, of course, Margaret Thatcher. So I know it was after that. You know, we can talk about Tony Blair being the people talked about. I remember Princess Diana as the people's princess. So maybe around that time, because Tony Blair was such a globalist. What I remember is, I do remember during his, when he was in office, I remember going back to England and seeing them taking down all the telephone booths, and I thought that was the beginning of wanting to make England like everywhere else. And I thought, if you take away everything that is quintessentially English or British, all the red telephone boxes, and you take away everything like that, that's what tourists come to England for. There's certain things that make you feel English and British, and he started to divest of many of those.
It's why they also want to bring down the royal family, and also why they are trying to get rid of pubs, whoever they are. But I think there is some sort of agenda going on there.
The evil they. Look, when I was lived in the UK in 2018, I thought you guys were okay. You guys seemed to be doing all right.
Oh, where did you? Tell the viewers and listeners where you were.
I went to the University of Cambridge. It was
right. Okay, so you're in beautiful Cambridge without an asylum hotel nearby.
I'm saying nice things about your country. I don't know why we're so touchy about it.
To this day, if you go back and you go to places like Devon and Cornwall, there are places where you wouldn't even know. But we're talking about places like London. That's more like Londonistan, Londini, Londongrad now.
Okay, so on the question of free speech, I feel I've never really understood the UK's approach to this, and I think that's coming from America, where we have very strict free speech laws, where you cannot, you can't, or when I say strict free speech laws, you can't imprison anyone for speech, and to see the UK government, the Labour government, go down this road is really insane to me. The way you beat speech you disagree with is more speech. You engage in argument, you engage in debate. Look, I'm not a fan of hate speech, but by criminalizing it, you're going to make it even more powerful, because it's going to seem like it's this, magical knowledge that they're imprisoning from other folks from getting to see it.
I'm marking my calendar that Mally agrees with us.
What do you make of your...
I agree with you guys way more than y'all ever agree with me, but we...
Maddie, what do you make of your government welcoming Brits as refugees?
I mean, I would love to have more Brits. Maybe it's my Irish-English heritage.
I haven't put you off.
More Brits. No, you have not put me off. I mean, I do think our new asylum policy, where we're only accepting white people from South Africa, is a little strange, but I'm willing to have a few more Brits come.
Okay, Layla, you're still with us. Reform UK's London mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham. It's a bit of a, I mean, it is a sad state of affairs when you have Brits now being welcomed as free speech refugees. But let me ask the same question to you. When do you think the decline in Britain started? For me, I'm only 36, so I'm quite young in the grand scheme of things, but it feels like it really accelerated in the last 20 years or so.
I think it's, I'm wondering if it's in relation to mass migration, because when you have a massive influx of people come into the country, it does change the demographics and it does create resentment, and there was no imposition on them to assimilate or integrate, and it did create a division in our country, I found. And on top of that, successive governments have really milked identity politics. You know, they put us in different boxes. You're Muslim, you're Christian, you grew up in a counter state, you didn't. You're all different. You all have different priorities. The government will decide who gets what. And they pitted us against each other. You know, it was divide and conquer. And in a way to control us, free speech is known now as harm, or misinformation, or disinformation, if the government doesn't like it. Misinformation and disinformation are two words I hate the most. And Labour and Conservatives love it.
Yeah, it was. The ironic thing is, as well, you get people going around calling Conservatives or right-wingers fascists, when actually the very definition of fascism is stamping out dissenting voices, you know, stopping the flow of information, stopping the sharing of ideas and dialogue. And look what they did to Charlie Kirk, the great Charlie Kirk here in America. They murdered him with a microphone in his hand, not a gun, not a knife. He was sat down with a microphone in his hand, and they didn't like it, so they killed him.
Disagreement
I've got two more
is
guests now. Benjamin Butterworth is... Sorry, go on, Layla, yeah?
No, disagreement is being treated as extremism. It's something to be controlled. You know, you're not allowed to offend anymore. Even our shows are not as funny as they are, Ben. We used to have the best sense of humour on our shows. Everything is censored. You come with a warning. You know, and for me, it's a form of control. I'm an adult. Let me see what I want, hear what I want. I'll make my own decision, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I used to love Little Britain, you know, back in the day, and the fact that even those two have come out now and said, "Oh, sorry about the comedy we made." It's like, come on, you absolute wet wipes. It was funny. It was funny at the time. It's still funny now. Lois McClatchley-Miller is down the line, and also Benjamin Butterworth to debate this. Guys, good evening. Thanks for your company on the Late Show Live. Benjamin, what's your take? Do you find it rather sad that we now have the American government encouraging Brits who are persecuted over free speech to come and seek refuge in the United States?
Well, I think this US woman, this person from the regime, might want to test her ears and her eyes, because nowhere in the world is curtailing free speech and freedom of expression more than the US. A place where the president has threatened to imprison journalists, has tried to sue into oblivion outlets like the New York Times and the BBC, has revoked access to question him for outlets like NBC and ABC, calls journalists piggies. That is the kind of behaviour that curtails free speech. We see it again and again among the US media that they are terrified to criticise or question the US president. That is far more of a threat to freedom of speech. So quite frankly, if anybody should get refugee status because their freedom has been taken away, then it should be Americans who are under attack from Trump's regime.
OK, Benjamin. Lois, what's your response to that?
Well, listen, nobody in the United States is on trial or being criminally prosecuted successfully for praying silently in their heads. So in the UK, we have an institutional free speech crisis. That means like the courts, the laws are working against the people and censoring them in a legal capacity. You know, free speech isn't just a culture war talking point. It is a fundamental human right. And for decades, we've offered refuge to people from Pakistan, Nigeria. These these parts of the world because they have been persecuted on account of speaking about what they believe. And I think this just underscores that the UK don't get off lightly just because they're Western. They also have to protect the beliefs of those who are not necessarily the most popular, who are perhaps of a different faith to the norm. But they still need to be able to speak out their views. And if the UK cannot protect those rights in the legal system, then I'm grateful for a friend like the US offering that refuge.
Yeah, Benjamin, by the way, Trump is suing the BBC and the New York Times and so on for just basically lying. They're liars. They're suing them for defamation, for just lying about him. So, I mean, surely you agree making stuff up about people to harm their reputation and their financials isn't good, no?
Well, hang on. If you're a free speech Puritan who says that you should be free to say whatever you like, then you can't say that and then say that you think there are examples of speech that should be sued for. That doesn't make sense.
Well, no, you believe in defamation. I still believe in defamation laws. There's still, you can't go around saying, well, that guy's a paedophile when he's not a paedophile. You can't go around saying, well, that guy stole millions of dollars when he didn't do it. That's just lying. That's just willfully lying.
And of course, I agree with that. That would be part of my argument, that there has to be limits to speech, because when your speech takes away someone else's freedom, which a false claim, for example, of being a paedophile clearly would take away someone else's freedom, then that's the case. I mean, the example that was just given by Lois, claiming that praying silently got someone in criminal trouble. It's just not true. We have laws in this country that say you can't intimidate or threaten or harangue women that are making their own very difficult decision of whether to have an abortion. Somebody who breaches that is breaking the law.
Harassing women, Benjamin.
Sorry, say that again.
How is standing in the streets with your eyes closed and thinking in your head, not saying anything, not gestating or doing anything, how is that harassing women?
But you're aware that the law says that there are exclusion zones around places where women get abortions, where people are not allowed to protest or intimidate or harangue or make people feel uncomfortable. You understand that's the law of the land. When that's the law, you can make your political argument about disagreeing with it and lobby for a different
government. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about, the law.
Why should there be exemptions for those laws?
Sorry to interrupt. Lois, that is exactly what we're talking about. Benjamin's saying, yeah, but it's the law. Yes, that's what we're talking about. The law is BS. The law is censorship.
Benjamin is the prime example of what's going wrong here. You know, people having peaceful beliefs, peaceful expressions of simple prayer, being accused of things like harassment and intimidation. That is how censorship works. Accusing people of terrible crimes and different wrongdoings just because they believe something else, just because they express a different opinion. You know, this crisis comes up again and again and again. We see street preachers arrested and put in jail and cells for speaking about the gospel and for comparing Christianity and Islam at Ramadan. That was a case in the Daily Mail last year. Yeah. And this, it is clearly quite a targeted thing against Christian belief. I believe, you can see these multiple examples, and it's just so unjust to be using these laws as weapons. By the way, that law that Benjamin refers to, that doesn't just ban harassment, that bans what is called influence. What does it mean to influence? To offer a quiet word to a friend, to think something in your head? These laws are way too broad, they're way too censorial, and they're being misused in the UK. If the UK cannot keep their laws in order, then they should be called out by our friends abroad.
Guys, thank you very much for a spirited debate. Ben, I appreciate you staying up so late, and Lois as well. Thank you for your company. We'll catch up very soon. A number 10 spokesman has told GB News the PM was very clear in his meeting with the President that the UK has a proud history of freedom of speech that will endure. That continues to be our position. Do you remember that clip from Starmer and Trump on the steps? I think it was Turnberry, where somebody, maybe it was Bev, who asked, have we got free speech? And Starmer said, well, we've had free speech in this country for hundreds of years, and that will continue to go on. Yeah, right. Still ahead on the Late Show Live.
This rhetoric against ICE, comparing them to Nazi Gestapo, Donald Trump's police force, is despicable, it is shameful, and it is precisely what has led to the escalation of tensions in Minneapolis and in other places across the country.
Well, surprise, surprise, who would have thought? It's been revealed that ICE agents are facing 8,000% increases in death threats. I guess that's what happens when you go around calling people Nazis, Hitler and stormtroopers. And in what we uncovered in Los Angeles this week, I was there, had the privilege of being in the beautiful LA sunshine. It's worse than you think. The perception of liberals and immigration and ICE in the United States, well, all over the world, is absolutely insane. I'll bring you that report very shortly. But first, tonight.
I understand you know Savannah Guthrie. What is the federal government doing right now? Is the FBI now leading the investigation?
The FBI is probing another new message in the search for NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. She's still not been found. It's day 7. Fears are really grave now about the woman's welfare. More on that in just a tick on The Late Show Live. Don't go anywhere.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits. You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world. Am I allowed to talk now? No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
One of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. What is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, you know, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK.
That was Vice President J.D. Vance joking about the UK descending into Islamism last year. Welcome back to The Late Show Live. Well, now, a former government advisor has accused the Home Office of attempting to silence him after he too warned about the threat of Islamism. That's coming up very shortly in the next hour. But first tonight, there are still no suspects named as the search for Nancy Guthrie, the mother of NBC News host Savannah Guthrie, enters its 7th day. Last night, officials were searching the property where a car near her home, was towed away, and the FBI has offered a $50,000 reward for information. And breaking in the past few moments, this new video has just been released. Take a look.
We received your message and we understand. We beg you now to return our mother to us so that we can celebrate with her. This is the only way we will have peace. This is very valuable to us.
Mally's here, Hillary's here. Mally, what's your take on this? I guess as the days go on, the chances traditionally in crime of a safe return diminish, but what's your take on it?
Well, Stephen and I talked about this a little bit with Bev on Thursday. The thing that's really brought the country together on this is, in such a divided country we have right now, Ms. Guthrie is one of the few people who really doesn't have any enemies right or left, right? People just respect her as a journalist and really appreciate all the work she's done. So I'm hoping that we can get her mom back and we can just move forward. But the thing that does worry me is that they say it's about money, they say they'll pay, but someone who's so unstable to kidnap a mom, an 84-year-old woman, it worries me that maybe they're not after money, maybe they're just a crazy person with a vendetta against Savannah Guthrie. So hopefully they can get the mom back safely, though.
President Trump, despite having clashes with Guthrie before, I think in debates, he came out and said, of course, we'll do all we can to try and help.
Yeah,
I mean, politics out the window, understandably. I mean,
no,
doesn't really
he has.
mention.
He said he's going to deploy any kind of forces necessary to be beneficial and helpful, which I think is wonderful. And I agree with Mally on this, that she is somebody that actually helps to bring the nation together. So it's unbelievable, actually. There'd be greater understanding of this if it was somebody who was divisive or polarizing, or somebody on either side, or somebody that's extreme, viewed as extreme. She is viewed as very middle of the road. I will say this also, a neighbor has recently just reported that they noticed that the rooftop is extremely white, and that means there have been a contractor there very recently. And they've reported this, which I think is a good point, that maybe it was a contractor. And that's another reason that I believe the police have been up on the rooftop there and to try and retrieve any of the video footage up there. Maybe that will give some kind of clue. But also what I would say is, not only is her mother 84 years old, so her health is of great concern, but also think about this. I believe they originally asked for Bitcoin, and now with the amount of time that this has taken, this is going to be something, by the time this actually gets solved, given they only now have this means of this direct line of communication, what state will her mother be in, even if those kidnappers have treated her well?
Yeah, I don't really buy that Bitcoin thing either, because Bitcoin, they say, lots of news websites are saying, oh, Bitcoin is an untraceable currency. It's not. It's the most public payment ledger system in the world. It's not good for ransoms or crime, despite what people say. It's just absolutely nonsense. FBI agents now involved, Mally. That is the home of the mother. A ransom letter sent to several media outlets, including TMZ, demanded millions of dollars. Apparently, and the note included two deadlines. The first was Thursday and a second for Monday. But the family now, Samantha and her two siblings, saying that they're willing to pay.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that the way this goes down is they pay, they get her back, but then immediately after they pay and they get her back safely, authorities can use that information, kidnap the sick person or people, and get the money back, right? Like, I would do anything, and I think anyone would do anything to get their loved one back and pay whatever you have to pay. And then after you do that, figure out the next steps to get the money back and get these people held accountable.
Do you think this is political, or do you think it's just some nutter?
I think it's a crazy person.
Yeah.
I think someone with her being so high profile, I think this could easily be someone who saw this as an opportunity to either make some money or to send a statement to a political...
I don't know that they're that crazy, because this has been very well planned and very well executed. I mean, to think of all the police forces that they have, to think the fact that right now they basically have no clue, and all the investigation that's taken place, so they've done it rather well if they're crazy.
Okay. All right. Yeah, best wishes to the Guthrie family. I hope the mother is returned safe and well, but as I said, I think as the days go on, it just kind of... I mean, it's a police stat, isn't it? The longer something goes on unsolved, the higher the chance that the ending isn't going to be what people wanted. Still ahead on The Late Show Live, would you ever tell someone if they gave you too much money? If you asked your mate to transfer you some money and they gave you too much, would you say something? I think, of course, you would, unless you're a snivelling little treacherous liar. But I'll bring you the extraordinary story that saw people transferred billions of pounds instead of $2. That's in the next hour, but also tonight.
I am sorry. Sorry, 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 and sorry.
Sorry you were ever elected, Keir Starmer. Tonight there are murmurings the PM's on the brink of quitting. Should he quit, and do you fear who could replace him if that happens? Ed Miliband, Angela Rayner...
John Healey would be solid.
John Healey could be solid. Back in a tick on The Late Show Live.
GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk then?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints. How many fingers have I got up? About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m. only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. My panel are still with me, Hilary and Mally, and in London, Reform UK's London mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham. Guys, instead of doing the papers, because there's one story doing the rounds, it's Mandelson again, which we'll discuss in the next hour, I wanted to read some of your says. First of all, Bob said, Ben, are you going to watch Bad Bunny? Bob, I didn't know who Bad Bunny was until this week, and I'm not lying, and Mally is surprised. I have no idea who Bad Bunny is, but he's performing at the Super Bowl tonight. Mally, who is he?
He's a huge artist. He's from Puerto Rico. I don't listen to a ton of Bad Bunny's music. It's not really my cup of tea, but I do.
It's garbage.
I do think it's crazy, Ben, that you hadn't heard of him. But maybe it's a UK thing. He's huge in America.
Layla, have you heard of Bad Bunny?
I'm actually Googling him now. I hadn't heard of him. I'm sure my kids have, but I have not heard of Bad Bunny, no.
Save your time. Absolute
Is
garbage
it good rap?
music.
I don't mind a bit of rap. Is it good?
Party tomorrow, and I'll be.
No, it's like it's Puerto Rican Spanish bop. It's awfully. I'd rather sit there and listen to Slipknot for 4 hours. It would be more peaceful in my mind. Okay, one other comment I wanted to read you, which was, I think, a more pertinent conversation. Nick, hello Nick. You've said, hi Ben. What we're seeing is a massive left versus right struggle on an industrial scale right across the world. Just look at the US, look at Europe and the UK to see this. I kind of agree with you, Nick, but Hilary, I view this as not left and right. I don't think left and right exists really anymore because it's very muddled. But I think it's a spiritual war. I think it's good versus evil. And I said to you, Hilary, if you were the devil and you wanted to destroy countries from within, you would open the borders, you would destroy the concept of family, you would brainwash people with ideologies such as transgenderism or net zero, and just basically lie to people. I think what's going on here is not just left versus right, and your idea is wrong and mine's right. I think it's a deeply spiritual thing going on here.
Well, actually, to add on to what you just said, on top of that, what you would do is you'd make the people that object put them into a bucket as if they're racist. So that's, I think, even worse, because it's actually trying to silence those that say we're for law and order, we're for protected borders. You're making them out to be something terrible and bad, as if what you're doing in terms of destroying the nation is the good guy. That's, I think, is actually layered on top, makes things even worse. So it's actually intimidating people to speak out. And then when you do speak out, 12,000 people, especially in the UK, are arrested.
Yeah. Layla, is it left or right anymore? What is it?
No, I don't think it's left or right anymore. It's control or freedom for me. So you've got the left who, I guess they're the old-fashioned left, who just try and control you, you know, and the control always comes under the guise of safety, expediency, speed. But when you give up your freedoms for safety, you end up with nothing. And for me, it's control freaks or freedom. And as a reform person, I honestly feel I'm a freedom fighter.
Mally, your thoughts?
Well, given that, Ben, you think I'm evil, Hillary thinks I might potentially...
No, I don't think you're evil.
Well, you just said it was a battle of good versus evil. Hillary,
no, I think...
Oh, hold on.
No, you just said, I called you evil. I haven't. I think people... I think people are being used as pawns and brainwashed by some nefarious agenda.
Okay, and then Hillary said that, you know, basically we're claiming that everyone who's not for what we're for is anti-American, and then we had Layla say I'm a control freak. Look, I would say this. I think
I'm probably the most correct.
It depends on what country you're in.
All right, I'll tell you what, we've got to go, but we're going to continue this.
Ben interrupted me.
I'm sorry, we'll continue this in the next hour, I promise, otherwise we're going to crash out. More coming up in the next hour, including this.
It's all the right-wingers, the Conservatives.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's further rain and showers in the mix today, heaviest in the west later, but there is going to be some brightness just coming through. So on the whole, generally a drier day than Saturday. Still some spells of rain across Scotland. Again, eastern areas seeing the most persistent. Otherwise, any low cloud mist and fog lifting. There is going to be a lot of cloud around, but out towards the west, we may get some brightness ahead of further heavy downpours coming in later on in the afternoon across Devon and Cornwall and into Wales. Generally for all of us though, it is rather mild actually for the time of year, and especially compared to earlier on in the week. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, again, we hold on to the cloudy theme across much of Scotland with spells of rain, most persistent this time across northern parts and into Orkney and Shetland, with a brisk wind here, still from that southeasterly direction. Across Northern Ireland, maybe some breaks, but also a few showers, and that's similar across much of Wales and the southwest of England, with some heavy downpours coming through to end Sunday. Towards the east of that, we still could see some showers pushing their way northwards, but mainly out towards the west, these bands of showers will continue to push their way northwards. Some clearer skies developing across Northern Ireland, perhaps into the far southeast. That could allow for some mist and fog patches, otherwise further rain coming through across Devon and Cornwall. Still generally frost-free as we start Monday. Now, Monday, it's a messy picture out there. A lot of low cloud and murk. Further outbreaks of rain pushing their way northwards into Scotland, and then out to the west, further spells of rain again across Wales, Devon and Cornwall. But across the southeast, something a little bit drier on Monday, with more in the way of cloud breaks to give some sunnier spells. Otherwise, highs of up to 11 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes and Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised. I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
And
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning, live from Washington DC. This is GB News with the stories shaping Britain and America. And tonight, a stunning intervention from a former Prime Minister, Gordon Brown. He's launched a blistering attack on Peter Mandelson, accusing him of betraying Britain amid the Epstein scandal. And breaking in the past few moments, it's been revealed the former US Ambassador, Mandelson, not only received a five-figure goodbye after he was booted out of Washington, but he also received personal financial advice from Epstein on the purchase of his rather posh £8 million mansion in London.
One of the big dangers in the world, of course, is nuclear proliferation, though, of course, the Biden administration doesn't care about it. What is the first truly Islamist country that will get a nuclear weapon? And we were like, maybe it's Iran, you know, maybe Pakistan already kind of counts. And then we sort of finally decided maybe it's actually the UK.
An advisor has accused the Home Office tonight of attempting to silence him after he warned about the threat of Islamism.
Trump! Trump! Fuck you, Nazi! I spit your blood, you
It's been revealed that Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents, ICE, are facing an 8,000% increase in death threats as protests continue to rock America. No surprise, I guess, when you go around calling them Nazis and Hitler stormtroopers. And what I uncovered in Los Angeles is even worse than you think. I'll bring you that report very shortly.
I understand you know Savannah Guthrie. What is the federal government doing right now? Is the FBI now leading the investigation?
And of course, we'll have the latest on the desperate search for NBC News anchor Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mother. Their family have just released a new video tonight saying they are willing to pay whatever the cost to get their dear 84-year-old mother back. I'm Ben Leo, and this is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks this hour. hello. Thank you for your company on The Late Show Live. Joining me in Washington is my panel, political commentator Hilary Fordwich and the Democrat strategist Mally Smith. And in London is Reform UK's London mayoral candidate Layla Cunningham. Right, Mally, I apologise for cutting you off the last hour. Let's continue and conclude the conversation we were having. As a reminder for viewers, it was a message from Nick on Your Say, gbnews.com/Your Say, who said, "Hi Ben, what we're seeing is a massive left versus right struggle on an industrial scale all across the world. Look at the US, look at the UK, look at Europe to see this." I argued that I don't think left and right really exists anymore. It does in maybe some minor concept. But my argument was that it's more of a spiritual battle going on, Mally. Good versus evil. I think there's an agenda to destroy the concept of family. I think it's inherently evil and demonic at its heart. What's your take?
Well, first, I'll say you guys were kind of like the UK government there, trying to silence my free speech. But then second, look, I don't love framing things as battles between good and evil in politics for the most part, because as we've discussed, there's only few truly evil regimes in the history, like, you know, Hitler. I think when you have terminology like that, it makes the debate in our politics much worse. But since you did say...
But Mally, your side calls us
is
fascists and racists all the time. The Democrats called Trump a fascist, they call him a Nazi. This Labour Party call us a Nazi. Evil is pretty tame in that sense, and I don't see you calling them out.
And Maxine Waters was the one, the politician who got up and said, basically, go and attack people in restaurants.
Right, go on, Matt.
Well, let me say, I wouldn't agree with that language, but President Trump has called Kamala a fascist, has called Kamala a communist. President Trump, just after Ilhan Omar was
She was
attacked,
a communist.
In spring...
She was a socialist. She wanted state-run supermarkets. She wanted state-run supermarkets.
You're saying that you're mad that we call you these things, and now you're justifying President Trump using that same language.
Are you comparing the word communist? Are you comparing the word communist to Nazis? It's very different. One killed 6 million Jews. The other one is a political ideology. It's very different. It's incomparable. And it's insulting to all the people that don't.
Communism, I think, killed more...
Well, conservatives would argue communism killed a ton of people.
Yeah, so because if it's implementation.
But yes, But when you argue in this left versus right, and putting it in this imagery of good versus evil, I'm just saying that in a time when we have such political division, I think that can make things worse. And then I'll also say this. Ben, you talked about the family. Yes, one of the reasons I am in politics is my granddad was a preacher. My mom's parents were missionaries in Nigeria. My Christian faith really helps determine my political views. And one of the reasons I support Democrats is that we are committed to making sure every American has health care. Under the Trump administration, his tax cuts, which go to billionaires and millionaires primarily, are paid for by cutting taxes, or is paid for by cutting Medicaid for 10 million Americans. So you say that the Democrats are against family and that this is a God thing and it's evil versus good. Jesus had no verses and said nothing in the Bible about
But Molly, who do you think pays
borders,
for all the health care that you want to give? Who do you think pays for all the health care that the Democrats want to give? It is the rich that you demonize. Without their tax dollars, you wouldn't have the money. There is no public money. It is just taxpayer money, and that comes from the rich and the successful. And the Democrats want to punish the creators and the engines of growth. You demonize them as bad. All the tax cuts are going to the rich.
Let Mally answer.
Go on.
Sometimes I feel like we're in a MAGA media safe space and I can't say anything. Look, I think that yes, millionaires and billionaires should pay higher taxes. I do think millionaires and billionaires should pay higher taxes. That is true. Guilty as charged. But let's look at President Trump's actual tax agenda. His tariffs are a tax on the American consumer, on the American middle class. And we know that it's costing Americans thousands of dollars.
You talk about the American middle class, but what about the American working class?
President Trump isn't against taxing Americans. He's against taxing millionaires and billionaires, and his tariffs primarily tax low-income and middle-income consumers.
We're getting bogged down in policy. Last word to you on this.
No, I think you know the problem is that politicians on both sides always talk about the very high earners, how to tax them all, and the very poor, how to give them more benefits. But it's that middle that gets punished, and it's the middle that pays for anything, and they're completely ignored. And that is my final say.
Okay.
And bottom line, if you tax them more, they'll go. Look at the failing states in America where they've raised the taxes.
The crazy thing to me is that you guys have talked about how it's good versus evil, and I'm trying to say that we should lower the tension, and then you guys attack me and say that all these things that Democrats say is terrible, while you guys are literally framing it as good versus evil.
Just to
I don't really know where you guys land on
I've got the simple judgment for this.
Should we lower the rhetoric, or is it a battle versus good versus evil?
Hillary, last word, Hillary.
I got the simple solution for this. Just look at which states in America are succeeding and those where people are moving and those that are succeeding.
Okay.
And look at the UK, where every 45 minutes a millionaire leaves, and what are you left with?
Okay, Mally, my frame, I don't want to talk about policy. My point wasn't about the nitty-gritty of policy. It was more about, and Ronnie on your side said, Ben doesn't think left and right exist and he lives in America. I'm literally crying. Left and right does exist as a label. That is the easy label we slap on these things. We say, well, you want open borders, so you're a leftist, and you want lower tax, so you're a conservative. Yes, of course that exists as a label, but I'm talking about deeper than that. Behind the intention and the energy behind those kind of conversations, I think, is deeply spiritual. That was my point. Caroline has concluded it perfectly. Caroline, you've said it is a spiritual battle, but understand the battle when spiritual is not against flesh and blood, but rather within ourselves, which is why we are called on to pray for, love, and bless our enemies. And Mally, when I say that I think some of this agenda in the West now is evil, i.e. the destruction of the nation state, the destruction of family, cutting off the genitals of children, or exposing them to some sort of sinister, dark transgender pathway, that is evil. And by the way, I'm not saying you personally are evil. I'm saying the intention and the agenda behind that is evil. And I think you get good-hearted people, like a lot of people are on the left, let's give them that label. They act with good intentions. They think they're good people. They think they're being hospitable and welcoming and nice by having open borders and saying, of course we should welcome people in from the third world. Of course, because I'm a nice person. So I get that, but I'm saying the intention behind it is inherently evil. And that's where it stands. Last word, then we'll move on.
Well, I'll just say, I mean, again, that's in the eye of the beholder. You can have folks on the left who would say, I think that having an administration that is basic policy, economic policy program is tax cuts for the rich paid for taking away health care for the poor is inherently evil, that cutting food assistance to poor Americans is inherently evil. So look, again, I think this who is evil and who is not, it depends on where you're sitting, and you can have people who are on the left who would say, y'all's policy program is evil, and I'm saying framing this argument as good versus evil when we're already so polarized is only going to make things worse.
Okay, point taken. Right, thank you for that. Let's return to our main breaking news this evening. It's been revealed that former US Ambassador Peter Mandelson, well, he received a personal approval from paedophile Jeffrey Epstein for the purchase of his £7.6 million London pad in Regent's Park. In more emails released by the US Justice Department, the Sun newspaper is tonight reporting that the disgraced former Labour Minister Mandelson, well, he asked Epstein for a loan of £4 million, or at least heavily suggested it, at 3% interest rate. He asked Epstein for advice on whether he should go to the bank and get that. Was it a good interest rate? That revelation is despite reports that Mandelson claimed he barely knew Epstein during the vetting process for the US ambassadorial role. But there's more tonight, because former Prime Minister Golden Brown, the very expert gold trader, has also now urged Sir Keir Starmer to clean up the party and government or risk paying a heavy price. And also breaking tonight, the Deputy Prime Minister, David Lammy, he's joined Angela Rayner in claiming he warns the Prime Minister against appointing Mandelson initially. And here's another kicker. The Telegraph is reporting that those close to Sir Keir Starmer have said he's, quote, devastated about the scandal and is wrestling over whether to continue as Prime Minister, something Downing Street denies, claiming he's committed to delivering for the country. But how can a PM continue when there's a clear coup taking place behind closed doors? This week as well, we've also heard that Angela Rayner could be preparing to launch a leadership bid. And tonight, it looks like the eco-zealot-in-chief Ed Miliband is plotting to run again to be Prime Minister, basing his leadership model on New York's left-wing Mayor Zohan Mamdani. And, let me catch my breath, if that wasn't enough, to prove there's a crisis at the very top. It's tonight being reported that Lord Mandelson secured an exit payment from Washington of 3 months' salary when he was given the boot by Starmer and sent back to London with his tail between his legs. Of course, he was sacked by the Foreign Office after he was forced out as ambassador to the US in September. That figure is believed to be anywhere between £38,000 and £55,000. The payout is now thought to being reviewed in the wake of recent revelations. And in just a moment, I'll bring you an exclusive clip of Lord Mandelson, which shows how his judgment may have always been a little bit questionable and perhaps offers a clue as to how he ever landed the damn job in the first place. Former Tory MP Louise Mensch is with me down the line. Louise, so much going on here. And also, I don't know if you want to comment on the previous conversation about generally good and evil, whether you care about that or not, but what's your take on this absolute chaos?
Well, let's leave good. I think good and evil's been thoroughly well done by your excellent panel there. So I will just duck out of that as I'm no saint. Let's just leave it at that. I think that you're watching the death throes of Keir Starmer's premiership right now. If people around him, which is usually code for him in journalist speak, are telling the newspapers that he is torn, he is unhappy, etc., etc., this is a man who's on the brink of quitting. And something that we didn't discuss in that little clip there is that, of course, Keir Starmer lost that motion in the House of Commons when the Conservatives put forward a humble address, and all of these documents, not all of which have come out yet, the vetting documents, they are going to be released to the Intelligence and Security Committee, who aren't going to redact them for the general public just because Keir Starmer wants. Originally, he tried to have Number 10 have control, but he lost that battle. So now, is there worse to come? When we say, is Keir Starmer going to quit, we're only thinking about the hits he's taking now, the standard payoff that Mandelson got. What if there is far worse to come about the vetting of Mandelson and how he and his chief of staff shoved it through against the advice of the security services? I don't see how he could possibly survive then. And if I were him, I would quit. It sounds to me like he is worried about what will come out when those vetting documents or lack of vetting documents are released.
And it's amazing to think, Louise, that one of Starmer's last acts as Prime Minister could be what I describe as the treacherous surrender of the Chagos Islands and then whacking taxpayers with a £30 billion bill for the privilege. Ed Miliband tonight is being tipped ahead, actually, of Angela Rayner to try and take Keir Starmer's job. He's apparently basing his leadership campaign, if it does come, on your mayor are you in New York City or New York State? Anyway, Zoran Mamdani, Louise. How's Mamdani getting on in New York?
A bit of both, a bit of both. I've got a place in the city and I'm up in the countryside at the moment. But one thing that Mamdani, who I can't stand and I think is a disaster, one thing that the guy does have, very much like President Trump on the other end of the spectrum, is he's got charisma. He's got pizzazz, he's got star quality. People can't look away. Even Trump was very charmed by Mamdani when he hosted him at the White House. Ed Miliband is nobody's idea of charismatic. Ed Miliband is nobody's idea of dynamic. He is nobody's young hero. He is nobody's young blood. Honestly, if Keir Starmer is looking for a silver lining to the clouds hanging over him, I would say it's that Ed Miliband wants your job. Because if there's one person that most of us would not want instead of Keir Starmer, it's Miliband and or Rayner. And I don't think either of those two are going to succeed him, but it does sound like he is on the verge of quitting. And if there are more damaging revelations about how he absolutely shoved this man through, knowing full well that he was a friend of Epstein's after that conviction for child prostitution, then I think Keir Starmer would be resigning in a much more embarrassing way even than if he goes right now. So I think we should brace ourselves for a change at the top of the Labour Party and therefore the country.
David Lammy, well, his words anyway, are on the front page of the Sunday Telegraph tomorrow. He says, I warned Starmer about Mandelson. So apparently David Lammy had some great insight which nobody else had. Although this is what David Lammy previously said about Mandelson. Take a look.
Well, Peter Mandelson is a man of considerable expertise. He's the right man for this moment to be our ambassador.
Well, I'm sorry, David Lammy is also another snivelling hypocrite who seemingly can't tell the truth. What is it, David? What's your take on David Lammy being the next Labour leader, Louise?
to David Lammy, his useless career, and he was incredibly undistinguished, was rescued by Starmer, was thrown a lifeline, made Deputy Prime Minister, now he comes out with this. Well, why didn't you say something about it at the time? Why didn't you stop this appointment then? And I think we're going to see a lot of people going, oh, not me, Gov, you know, I didn't have anything to do with it. I advised him not to do it. The fact is, none of you spoke up. None of you said it was a bad idea. And so all that is happening now is that you just look hypocritical. You just look like you've got no loyalty to your leader when his back's against the wall. And by the way, if you think you're going into number 10 yourself, you're not. The big winner of this is Larry the Downing Street cat, who will add one more Prime Minister that he has outlasted in his 15 years at number 10. Maybe we could just draft him to be Prime Minister. He'd do a better job than any of this lot.
Louise, do you miss politics?
I do. It's so exciting right now. And honestly, you just mentioned about the Chagos deal, which is a disaster. I'm gonna pitch your guest Layla, if she's still there. Please ask Nigel Farage to call President Trump and stop this. Why did President Trump change his mind? We all thought we were going to be rescued by the White House because they cannot give away the Chagos deals without the permission of the United States because of a mutual defense treaty that we both signed. So whoever changed Donald Trump's mind is an idiot. Please change it back. And no matter where you look, whether it's America, whether it's Britain, it's certainly interesting times, as the Chinese proverb has it, isn't it? You can't look away. It's one firework after another. Yes, I am enjoying it. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't.
Louise, last question before I let you go, and thank you for your company tonight, as always. If there was a seat for reform available, would you ever consider running in a couple of years?
Oh, I tell you what, Nigel, just pick up the phone. Yes, I probably would. Honestly, I see the most important thing as just stopping the Labour Party. And the one danger here is complacency. Yes, Reform have a good lead. The Conservatives, however, are making gains. They're coming up behind them. I can see, as a veteran of politics, now I'm 55, I can see a situation in which the Tories and Reform split the vote and Labour kind of sneaks through with a lot less seats, but they're still governing. We owe it to the country not to let that happen. So that's what I really believe. You've got to stop Labour.
Great stuff. Thank you, Louise. Layla's down the line still. Layla, a couple of questions there. Is Louise welcome in reform? Will you encourage Nigel Farage to pick up the phone to Trump? And what was the other question? Will you do a deal with the Tories if it comes to it?
No deal with the Tories. They had their chance and they destroyed the country. Actually, you know, I think if the Tories didn't do so badly, you know, we wouldn't exist. And I think our unique selling point is that we have not had we haven't destroyed the country and we're not part of the uniparty. Would Louise be welcome? I mean, listen, anyone who believes in Britain and wants to do best for Britain and doesn't want to give away our sovereignty in the name of global partnerships is more than welcome. Louise, you live in New York. My husband actually moved to London from New York. And yeah, he doesn't love New York, but he's not from there. He says it's a hard life.
I can understand that.
Yeah, it's a tough life.
I can understand that. Well, I might be coming back across the pond, never say never, but Layla, please use your influence with Nigel Farage to get him to call President Trump. It is not too late. One thing you can say about President Trump is he changes his mind quite a bit, so until the ink is dry, we haven't got rid of the Chagos Islands, and I know that Nigel Farage has a lot of influence with the president, and I would appeal to Reform to get in there and stop this from happening. I think only you can stop it at this point.
I'm sure...
The future of Chagos sits on you.
Well, oh dear. It was a guarded approval, though. You know, it was, you know, I'm going to approve it, but if anyone messes on my turf, he kind of claimed it was still his turf. If anyone messes with it...
It's United States based. It is his turf. I mean, I'm a dual citizen, and I see it as a betrayal of both American and British sovereignty. So let's just hope that President Trump can be persuaded to add a few more conditions and just delay it a bit. Keir Starmer will be gone.
The question, Louise, I've always wanted to ask myself is why? Why are they doing this?
I have no idea. Actually, I do have an idea. It's because of this guy, I'm going to mispronounce his name, Lord Hermer, the useless, incredibly communist Attorney General, the guy that went in and tried to prosecute all our soldiers, all our veterans from Northern Ireland. He has always detested America, hated the base at Diego Garcia, and this is his way of getting rid of it because of some kind of colonial guilt that nobody in Britain believes we should have. So he's Darth Vader, if you like. He's the evil power behind the throne, and I really hope that President Trump changes his mind.
I almost see it as a fundamental hatred of our country. Go on. Sorry.
Well, it is, Layla. You're both right. You've got Philippe Sands, Casey, another one of Starmer's best mates, probably mates with Hermer as well. You can just imagine it. All in Islington, sipping some fancy 1960s Petrus, talking about how they need to atone for Britain's white guilt and colonialism. And then Philippe Sands, Casey, represented Mauritius in brokering this deal. He's also been on camera before saying how he gets so much joy about beating Britain in the courts, in the human rights courts. I mean, they're just sick in the head. Ladies, thank you very much. Really fascinating debate, and yeah, we'll catch up fairly soon. Layla later on in the show, Louise maybe next week. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Lord Mandelson has previously denied any wrongdoing in relation to Jeffrey Epstein, stating, "I was never culpable or complicit in his crimes. Like everyone else, I learned the actual truth about Epstein after his death," and he added that he relied on assurances of his innocence that turned out later to be horrendously false. Not just false, horrendously false. There's been no suggestion by police that Lord Mandelson is suspected of any criminal offence, and searches of properties linked to him do not imply guilt or wrongdoing. And a Downing Street spokesperson has also told GB News Peter Mandelson's actions are unforgivable. He lied to the Prime Minister, hid information that has since come to light, and presented Jeffrey Epstein as someone he barely knew. They added, "We've already strengthened the ministerial code, giving the independent advisor greater powers to launch investigations, introduce a new monthly register of gifts and hospitality, established a new ethics commission, and ensured that ministers who break the rules cannot receive severance payments." Very good. All is well in the world. Nature's healing. Don't worry about it, guys. It's all being sorted. Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight. Where's all the right-wingers, the Conservatives? I'll bring you the views on immigration agents from one of the most liberal cities in the world, Los Angeles, and explore what is the liberal mindset. Why are they so pro-open borders? Well, I did some digging around the very posh neighbourhoods of LA. And also, does this reveal exactly what's going wrong? But also tonight, a former government advisor has accused the Home Office of attempting to silence him after he warned about the threat of radical Islam. This is The Late Show Live. Remember, no breaks. Back in a tick. Right, still ahead on the show, a holiday home with stunning sea views could be yours for $5,000. The catch? Well, I'll tell you a little later on. What do you think of it? Well, yeah, what do you think the catch is? I don't know the answer to this. What is the catch? Oh, I can probably, I can guess. Is it on the edge of a cliff that's being eroded away, or there's a lease of about 4 years on it? Get in touch, gbnews.com/your say. But first, big story. The Department of Homeland Security has fired a senior Customs and Border Protection official after it was revealed the officer had been allegedly leaking sensitive personal information about officers. It's also been revealed the law enforcement agents are facing an 8,000% increase in death threats as tensions across the US continue to rise over the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Basically, ICE agents are now 8,000% more likely to receive death threats. This is what happened when I took to the streets of the very, very uber-woke liberal Los Angeles to ask the locals about why they are so liberal when it comes to open borders. Take a look.
I don't think anyone in LA is pro-ICE.
Illegal immigration. America, the UK and Europe all suffering an invasion of their borders that, for the most part, nobody wants or asked for. But as we saw at the Grammys this week...
No one is illegal on stolen land.
And with Channel 5 presenter Matt Allwright back in the UK...
You have men in Crowborough already. What's different about these men?
Why is there such a distinct difference in the way mollycoddled celebrities perceive open borders compared to that of the everyday person? We just want to know why LA is so liberal.
I mean, it probably is liberal because, like, that's where everyone who's different kind of comes to be.
Where's all the right-wingers, the Conservatives?
I don't know.
Are you pro-ICE, against ICE?
I don't think anyone in LA is pro-ICE.
Oh, OK. Nobody?
No, I don't think so. Why would we be? Most of LA is immigrants.
Where are you from? The US?
Canada.
Would you like ICE in Canada?
No. We have lots of ice, but it's cold.
Different kind of ice. Yeah. Ice in or ice out?
Ice out.
Billie Eilish?
Yeah.
Ice, huh?
Yeah. You support that?
Of course.
Why? ICE in?
Sure.
You like ICE?
Absolutely.
You're the first person we've seen down here who's pro-ICE.
I'm a free thinker.
You know Billie Eilish got on the stage at the Grammys?
Actually, we need to have ICE, but we need to have a more tempered approach.
Controlled ICE, cooler ICE.
Cool ICE.
Is most of LA, is it a mix between legal and illegal immigrants? What's the kind of makeup?
I don't know. That's not for me to know. All I know is without our immigrants, LA is not LA.
ICE.
What's your issue with ICE?
They're kidnapping people.
Does the distinction matter between legal and illegal for guys in LA?
No one cares about that.
We don't want to get to be where Britain is. We don't want to get to be where London is. I can't recognize London.
What have you heard?
I've been there. I go there all the time. I go see my Chelsea beat up people when they're in good shape.
I'm an Arsenal fan.
We all have our problems, but you're having a good year.
Guys here in LA, very affluent area, lots of money, gated communities, high walls that maybe people here aren't exposed as much to illegal migration.
It's kind of everywhere you go, that's how it is. So I don't think that's just an LA thing.
Do you have many illegals here?
I'm not qualified.
You've seen any? You're aware of any?
Yeah. No, but have a great day.
All right, thank you very much. So that was interesting. I mean, the final question being, have you seen any illegals around LA or Rodeo Drive, outside the Gucci shop, or in Beverly Hills, or in the Hollywood Hills? No, because it's too rich of an area. My panel are back with me. Mally, Hillary, Layla's still there as well. Mally, that just sums it up, that last question to the lady there. Have you seen any illegals? Are you affected by illegal migration behind your massive 15-foot walls and your gates and your $20 million houses and your private schools and your sports club and your nannies and Rodeo Drive, sorry. Have you seen any illegals? No. Never come across a bloody illegal migrant in my life, but open borders for everybody. Yeah. The hypocrisy.
I think you're putting some words in her mouth. Did she say she's for open borders? And do we know if she lives in a gated community and has all this stuff?
Well, she lives in Beverly Hills.
Well, I mean, you're conflating the fact that a lot of rich and famous people live there, and you've found a poor lady on the street. You've asked all these questions.
She didn't look very poor. She looked very glamorous.
You get my point. When I say poor, not financially poor. I'm sure she's doing well financially, but she probably doesn't know if she knows undocumented immigrants, because I doubt she's going up to them and saying, "Ma'am or sir, are you an undocumented immigrant?" Like, I don't think she's asking to see people's papers. So she's just living her life, and I'm glad you got to ask her some questions.
Well, that's the point. Just living her life, as I said, not going through the trials and tribulations of the working class, who are having their tax bills soar because they have to fund illegals, who are having GP waiting lists soar because of illegals, can't get on a housing waiting list, can't get a place for their kids. The women and children, for the most part, are under threat from illegals. They're not. Be honest though, they're not exposed to it, are they?
Let's take a step back on two things.
True or false?
Let's take a step back on two things. First, this is not something that just progressives feel. The majority of Americans, A, think that ICE has gone too far.
We got some more polling.
And B, well, I saw on Twitter you were very excited to share a Republican pollster's numbers from Senegal polling, but all nonpartisan polling from YouGov, Rasmussen, Reuters, have all showed that Americans are unhappy with ICE and that they support reforming ICE. Even a plurality support abolishing ICE. So it's not a liberal thing. Second, you said undocumented immigrants commit more crimes than Americans. That is not true. Undocumented immigrants actually commit less crimes than native-born Americans. Third, you said
that's because there's more Native Americans.
You come here illegally, the first thing you've already done is
there's a thing called, in statistics,
well, I don't know about America.
So,
in the UK, some ethnic groups.
My man, we're not talking about the UK.
Let me finish.
We're talking about America. It's per capita.
Mally, I'll start calling you Malbert in a minute. Some ethnic groups in the UK.
Do you see what it's like to be me on this show?
Yeah, for fun.
Okay, it's fun, right?
Some ethnic groups are more prone to committing sexual violence against women and children than native Brits. That is a fact.
I don't know.
And I'm sure it's the same.
I don't know your stats for Brits, but I can tell you again, the data is clear. Undocumented immigrants commit less crimes than native-born Americans. So the idea that they're committing all these crimes
well, you've come in illegally. You've already done something illegal, so it's 100%. That's 100%.
Second is that you said that they are essentially this huge tax burden. That is also not true. The Cato Institute put out an analysis that showed undocumented immigrants pay trillions of dollars over the last decade more in taxes than they receive. That's because they pay income tax and payroll tax, yet most undocumented immigrants, I'm sure there's a few who have snuck on to benefits they aren't supposed to have, do not qualify for government benefits.
Well,
that is also not true.
Let me tell you about the UK. We've had...
Oh, well, so we're moving... Oh, great.
Layla, I was going to say, we've had uncontrolled mass migration for decades now, and yet GDP per capita is contracting, despite the myth we've been told, the absolute lie, that migration is good for the economy. It's obviously not.
Well, no, because we've imported foreign cheap labour for so long, and because wages have been so stagnant, inflation has been high, taxes have been high, they can't support themselves, and it's the British taxpayer who supports them. But I get Maddie's point, it's different in America because you don't have such a big welfare state as we do here. But Maddie, I just want to ask you a fundamental question. Do you believe in sovereignty? Do you believe in borders at all? Because you seem to think, you seem to defend illegal migrants. So I'm just asking a question, because you need a passport to enter your country. I need a passport to enter mine. If I lose my passport, I got to scramble to replace it. I got to go to the embassy. I got to get a visa no matter where I'm going. I got to apply to an ESTA when I come to the US. My husband's American. If I move there, I have to wait years for a visa. Why do illegal migrants get a free pass? What makes them so special?
Well, Layla, I agree with you that we need to have strong borders, and Ben has heard my point. We've had this discussion multiple times. I've criticized the Biden administration's immigration policy, where we had a lot of folks who were coming across the border and we did not secure the border. I've criticized the Biden administration on that. But what I think is the most logical step forward is to have ICE focus on violent criminals while providing a pathway to citizenship for those who've lived in the country for decades, especially for folks who were brought here as kids under no fault of their own.
So if you've just been here a few years...
that Ben talked to... Okay.
Sorry, if you've just been here a few years...
I didn't hear your question.
So if you've just been here a few years, but you're not violent, because you said decades, what do you do with those that have snuck in 2 years ago?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I think we would have to have a discussion, but I think that there should be a pathway for citizenship for undocumented immigrants. I think we should focus on the violent offenders and deporting them. But unlike some of the folks that Ben interviewed in LA, when I went to public school in North Carolina, real America, I did have some friends who were undocumented. They were brought here by their parents under no fault of their own. I went to elementary and high school with them. I think those folks who were brought there by their parents, who have no ties to their home country, should be provided a pathway to citizenship.
Mally,
call me crazy.
A few people are asking, Hilly, I'll get your take in just one sec. A few people are asking how illegals are paying tax. Someone said, how are they paying taxes if they're undocumented or illegal? As a Brit, I just don't understand the statement. How does an illegal pay tax?
Well, two things. First off, every person in the United States, including you, Ben, even if you're not a citizen, you pay payroll tax. Second, you can be a non-citizen and pay income tax. You have a personal identification number where you pay income tax. So I'm not saying all undocumenteds pay their income tax. I'm sure there are tax cheats who are undocumented, but yes, you can pay income tax while being undocumented.
Hillary, you've been very patient.
Well, my biggest point is that anybody that comes here illegally, when Mally says that they only have a certain small percentage of them have ever committed crimes, first of all, they've all committed crimes, 100% of them, because they come here illegally. They've broken the laws to get in here. And then secondly, with regard to, I agree that we should start definitely with those with violent crimes. All the criminals, those are the ones that we should arrest, and those should be deported initially and first. We now have over 20 million. This is literally a percentage that's almost as great as the state of New Jersey. So the thought of deporting all of them immediately is totally and utterly unfathomable and wouldn't be possible. So yes, you start with those that are the most violent criminals, then you go to the actual criminals, and then after that, yes, a path to citizenship. This has been broken, and it's been broken by politicians still in office that actually approved of this. And even though President Obama actually deported nearly 3 million illegals, and then President Clinton, it was 1.5 million. President Trump, so far, it's only 125,000. Yet under Obama and under Clinton, there were no protests. That is the issue, is that the left suddenly, despite Obama and Clinton deporting that many millions, suddenly the left is
Hillary,
against this.
you can find video of Obama being interrupted in speeches from activists who were criticizing his immigration policy and his deportations.
But he deported 3 million.
Yes, but I'm saying there were people on the left who did criticize.
But there weren't the same protests that there are now.
Yeah.
Nowhere in the nation.
But I'm saying that to say no one protest is not true.
No, there weren't any of the violent protests we're seeing across the nation.
It was just Minnesota. It was just fascinating for me in LA. I knew it anyway. It doesn't take a genius to work out. Viewers, you know as well back home, guys, that people, especially very uber liberal progressives, they're so pro-migration because they're just not exposed to the consequences of uncontrolled mass migration. And just walking around as a Brit, Beverly Hills, West Hollywood, just an amazing place. Like the houses are just beautiful, they're grand, massive gates. The gardens, the grass in the road is pristine. Everything's clean, everyone's fit and healthy, the sun is out, everyone's drinking smoothies. They are not exposed to it. So
it's funny you say liberals are for this and they're not exposed to it. I'm the only one here who went to a public U.S. school with undocumented immigrants who believes there should be a pathway to citizenship.
I think there should.
But Molly, you don't believe there should be a pathway.
So when Ben is saying that these lefties have no concept of reality and it doesn't affect them,
they don't.
I'm the only person on this panel who can speak to that.
But you also went to school in Cambridge, so you are a very privileged American. You left your country to go to the UK to study in Cambridge. That is quite a niche thing to do.
I went to a public U.S. elementary, middle, and high school.
Yeah,
you went to what did you do in Cambridge in the UK?
Yeah, I went to a good grad school. I'm glad I got into it.
There you go. Layla, last word to you on this, then we're going to move on.
No, I was just going to say, Mali, you say that those that have been here for decades, but you have not given us a solution for those that have been for a few years. So do you approve of ICE in that instance?
I would have to think about that. I definitely think that is an edge case scenario where I'd have to think about that. But you guys have got to realize that the folks ICE is deporting are not violent criminals. Only 5% of the folks that they are deporting are violent criminals. That is ICE's own data.
Okay. Thank you very much. Great debate. gbnews.com/your say. Casey, you said, Ben, are you describing where you live? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Try and elaborate. If you can elaborate, Casey, I'll try and answer your question. Are you describing where you live? I'm not sure what you mean. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live tonight.
I feel heartbroken about what's happened in the United States when, I'm pretty sure you're referencing ICE and some of the protests and things like that.
Oh, these lot are a bore as well. I mean, do you think we should keep politics out of the Olympics and sports, actually, as a wider conversation? Or do public figures have a duty to speak out? I am of the opinion that I don't want to hear about pop stars or sports stars, their political views. I just don't care. As I said, because I don't think they are of the common person. They generally, maybe they grew up in a working class environment, but now, today, they are not normal people. Again, going back to the old conversation, not exposed to the consequences of uncontrolled mass migration. But also tonight, a former government advisor has accused the Home Office of attempting to silence him after he warned about the threat of radical Islam. Why is the Home Office being accused of trying to silence the rise of radical Islam when it's obviously so much of a problem? This is The Late Show Live, only on GB News. Here's your weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's further rain and showers in the mix today, heaviest in the west later, but there is going to be some brightness just coming through. So on the whole, generally a drier day than Saturday. Still some spells of rain across Scotland. Again, eastern areas seeing the most persistent. Otherwise, any low cloud mist and fog lifting. There is going to be a lot of cloud around, but out towards the west, we may get some brightness ahead of further heavy downpours coming in later on in the afternoon across Devon and Cornwall and into Wales. Generally for all of us though, it is rather mild actually for the time of year, and especially compared to earlier on in the week. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, again, we hold on to the cloudy theme across much of Scotland with spells of rain, most persistent this time across northern parts and into Orkney and Shetland, with a brisk wind here, still from that southeasterly direction. Across Northern Ireland, maybe some breaks, but also a few showers, and that's similar across much of Wales and the southwest of England, with some heavy downpours coming through to end Sunday. Towards the east of that, we still could see some showers pushing their way northwards, but mainly out towards the west, these bands of showers will continue to push their way northwards. Some clearer skies developing across a Northern Ireland, perhaps into the far southeast. That could allow for some mist and fog patches, otherwise further rain coming through across Devon and Cornwall. Still generally frost-free as we start Monday. Now, Monday, it's a messy picture out there. A lot of low cloud and murk. Further outbreaks of rain pushing their way northwards into Scotland, and then out to the west, further spells of rain again across Wales, Devon and Cornwall. But across the southeast, something a little bit drier on Monday, with more in the way of cloud breaks to give some sunnier spells. Otherwise, highs of up to 11 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Welcome back to The Late Show Live. One very quick you'll say, Katie, you've got back and elaborated on your question. You said, do I live behind a house with gated walls and big driveway? No, I don't. No, maybe give me 10 years, I might become a left liberal progressive in Beverly Hills, but no, I'm only joking. No, I don't, Katie. Thank you though for tuning in. Right, still ahead on The Late Show Live. Would you ever tell someone if they gave you too much money? I think the default answer should be yes for anybody with any sense of conscience. I'll bring you the extraordinary story that saw people transferred billions of dollars instead of $2. Do you reckon they sent the money back? But first, The Telegraph tomorrow are reporting that a former government advisor says the Home Office tried to silence him after he warned about the threat of Islamism. So it's a chap called Fiaz Mughal. He says that he repeatedly raised concerns that ministers were failing to take the threat of Islamic extremism seriously. Well, let's get the thoughts of political commentator Matthew Stadlen and the Director of Civic Engagement and Senior Correspondent at Logical Politics, Khadija Brown. Good evening to you both. Thank you for sticking up with me on The Late Show Live so late. I very much appreciate it. This is a story. Well, Khadija, let's start with you. I take it you've read this story. It's about a guy who was working, he was a contractor working at the Home Office who raised concerns. He was on a sort of anti-extremism course, and his point was that 90 minutes into the course, an hour and a half on, nobody, not one person, not the course instructor, had mentioned radical Islam or Islamists. And he kind of said, well, hang on a minute, guys, that is the biggest extremist threat in the UK at the moment, and he basically paid the price for it. Khadija, what's your take on this?
I definitely do believe that he was silenced, and because the timing and reference to future work was a very clear case of chilling effect, which is known by UK law and the ECHR, that although he was not told not to speak, but they referenced the fact that his future work will be affected, is a very clear case of chilling effect. Therefore, he is silenced. And this is not an isolated case. This thing has happened in the past many times. And one very great case to bring to your attention is David Nutt, who was a senior drug advisor for the government. And he was silenced when he gave his expert advice by criticizing what the government is doing. The thing is, when we have experts giving advice to the government, they're not meant to be aligning with the government. They're meant to be giving their expert opinions. But the thing is, we have seen lately that if you speak up against something that they don't like and doesn't align with them, then you're silenced. And yes, it wasn't done in an illegal way, but you are being pressured in an informal way so that there's no record kept about it. Okay. So in my opinion, it's definitely, he is definitely being silenced.
Yeah, I remember David Nutt. He was sacked for saying that, I think the stats were true, that horse riding was more dangerous than taking ecstasy. Matthew, does the UK have an Islamism problem?
Well, obviously, yes. First of all. Secondly, I don't know.
Why would the government try and silence that?
I don't know Fiaz Mughal myself, and I've read the article clearly. Had this been on Monday, I would have called the Home Office and asked them for a more detailed response to the one that they've given at the end of the article. But I don't think he's been silenced in the sense he's talking about this, right? He's talking about this in public. What really is the suggestion here? That the British state or that the Labour government is not taking Islamism or Islamic extremism seriously? Of course it is. I mean, I think look. There is always the risk of an Islamic extremist attack to which we're all vulnerable. But I am, at least in part, reassured as someone who lives in London and uses public transport a lot of the time and has a family here, that our security services will be working round the clock dealing with this threat. And my understanding, by the way, is that Islamic extremism is by some distance the biggest threat that our country faces in terms of terrorism and extremism. So of course the British state and of course the Labour government is taking it extremely seriously.
Okay, well, you say that, but Khadija, the small boats keep coming. These strange men from, as I described them, faraway lands keep coming. Don't know who they are, where they come from. And over the decades, atrocities. London Bridge twice, Westminster Bridge, the Manchester Arena bombing. It goes on and on. Even in Europe, the Bastille Day celebrations, the Bataclan, and the Madrid train bombings, 7/7 in London. All committed, not by Mormons, not by Christians, not by Jews, but by radical Islam. That keeps happening. I would put my money on it happening again some point in the future in the UK, unfortunately. So if that keeps happening, it seems to me, common sense says, well, the government isn't doing enough to stop it.
I definitely agree with you. They are definitely not doing enough. And Fiyaz Mughal has been an advisor for the Home Office before the 7/7. So he is very aware of everything that is happening. And he's not exactly someone who is against Islam. He's a Muslim himself, and he understands the difference. He runs his own group, which is stopping hate against Muslims. But he, as a Muslim, identifies the difference between Islamism and normal Islam, and he is aware that Islamism is taken over, and we have seen in recent weeks that Emirates is refusing to send their students to the UK because they don't want radical Islam to be affecting their students. We know this is a very serious case, and we know it comes hand in hand with all the tons and tons of people that are arriving on boats on our shores on a daily basis. Of course there's an issue, and I definitely agree with him.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll just push for time. Apologies. Matthew, last word to you, Matthew.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I would just say, I mean, I reject your sort of lazy, bigoted description of men from strange men. Are you talking to me or Khadija? No, to you, Ben, from faraway lands. What I would say is that
they're not blondes from Sweden who we know their backgrounds, are they? They are. We don't know who they are, where they're from,
Sweden,
what their backgrounds
are,
from Sweden,
or what their intentions are. They may well be. Hang on, you get blondes from Sweden. They may well be far-right extremists. We don't know. We have 3.9 million Muslims living in Britain. And you know as well as I do that the vast majority, the overwhelming majority of those 3.9 million Muslims are law-abiding citizens, just like you and I, just like all three of us. Of course there is a problem with Islamic extremism. We live in this country, we know it, we've experienced it. I was live on air hosting a 4-hour national radio show with no adverts in the immediate aftermath that night of the London Bridge terrorist attack, an appalling atrocity. We all stand to gain from eradicating...
Yeah, I was there as well. I saw a girl with her throat cut. I was next to her as she bled out of the hands of Islamists.
Yeah, it's horrific, obviously. Everyone watching this show, I would suggest you, agrees. So let's not conflate innocent people with extremists. The extremists are the problem. They have to be dealt with under the law, and they have to be prevented as well, and that's what our security services are working round the clock to do.
All right. Okay, Matthew, thank you very much. As always, appreciate you staying up so late. And Khadija, great to speak with you as well. Hopefully you'll come back on the show at some point in the future. Thank you both. GB News would like to point out the Home Office has consistently stated that Islamist extremism remains the primary terrorist threat in the UK. The government has also said that Prevent and the Home Office's Channel programme work with a wide range of independent experts and partners. Right, my panel are back with me now. We haven't got long left, actually. What a show. It's gone very quickly. Mali, Layla's still there, I think. Layla, are you there? Are you falling asleep? And Hilary Hillary's here as
Just
well.
about.
Hillary, just your take on radical Islam.
Well, I'd like him actually to name any of those violent crimes that have happened from any other ethnic
groups. I don't think, again, I think that it's awful when you're labelled either racist or prejudiced when you actually point out statistically what is happening and where all these violent crimes are coming from. And even worse, when the police force across the UK, particularly like when you see what happened in Southport, when they actually suppress the information about who has committed certain crimes because they're so afraid of racial violence. That is reverse prejudice, and that's why Keir Starmer, of course, had that nickname Two-Tier Keir, because there's those, as we mentioned before, over 12,000 people arrested for their speech online versus these violent crimes when they're let out of jail.
I guess, Layla, Matthew, what I was talking about, Christian Swedes with their background, that's okay. Christian Swedes would put, I think he maybe was hinting at someone like Anders Breivik, the Norwegian guy, the far-right guy, but Islamist extremism is overwhelmingly, I mean, it goes without saying, the #1 threat to the UK.
Yeah, definitely. And I found there was the article about this in the, I think it was the Times or the Telegraph, that he said that they don't want to name it because I've got it here, they have a Muslim voting bloc, and that's what you have. You have now political parties that are so self-serving that they're no longer serving the country, and they will overlook national security interests to maintain their position. You saw it with the grooming gangs, you're seeing it with Islamic extremism, and it's a really dire state of our country and our politics. To think that, you know, a block of people who, some of them want to harm the country or have sympathies for Islamic extremism, are controlling some MPs and are making a political party look away is difficult to imagine in United Kingdom.
Okay, Mally, I'm not sure. Do you want to comment on that? I've got something better for you, though. The US
Give
athletes.
me something better.
Right. The Winter Olympics have kicked off in Milan. This is what some US athletes said about ICE. They basically said they're ashamed to represent their country. Take a quick look at this, if you can. Here it comes. It's coming.
I feel heartbroken about what's happened in the United States when, I'm pretty sure you're referencing ICE and some of the protests and things like that. I think that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. If it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
As an American, Mally, what's your take on that? I mean, I think it's treacherous commentary, but what's your take?
I don't think it's treacherous. I think one of the great things about this country is that you can be critical of it while also representing it, unlike your guys' country where, as we've seen, free speech laws are really.
Are you proud to be American?
I'm proud to be an American, but also being proud to be an American, you can also criticize the government when you don't like its policies, and that's what they were doing.
Layla, thanks for your company tonight. It's great to have you. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Hillary, thank you, as always. Mally, thank you. And of course, viewers back home, Casey, Lynn, Paul, who else has been messaging in? Paul, Gladys, Nick, Georgie, all of you, Michael, Martin, thank you so much for your comments. Appreciate it. Glad you enjoyed the show. I'll see you again tomorrow night from midnight in the UK. Have a good Sunday. Enjoy. See you tomorrow.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Good morning. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. There's further rain and showers in the mix today, heaviest in the west later, but there is going to be some brightness just coming through. So on the whole, generally a drier day than Saturday. Still some spells of rain across Scotland, again eastern areas seeing the most persistent. Otherwise, any low cloud mist and fog lifting. There is going to be a lot of cloud around, but out towards the west, we may get some brightness ahead of further heavy downpours coming in later on in the afternoon across Devon and Cornwall and into Wales. Generally for all of us though, it is rather mild actually for the time of year, and especially compared to earlier on in the week. Now, as we go through Sunday evening, again, we hold on to the cloudy theme across much of Scotland with spells of rain, most persistent this time across northern parts and into Orkney and Shetland, with a brisk wind here, still from that southeasterly direction. Across Northern Ireland, maybe some breaks, but also a few showers, and that's similar across much of Wales and the southwest of England, with some heavy downpours coming through to end Sunday. Towards the east of that, we still could see some showers pushing their way northwards, but mainly out towards the west, these bands of showers will continue to push their way northwards. Some clearer skies developing across Northern Ireland, perhaps into the far southeast. That could allow for some mist and fog patches, otherwise further rain coming through across Devon and Cornwall. Still generally frost-free as we start Monday. Now, Monday, it's a messy picture out there. A lot of low cloud and murk. Further outbreaks of rain pushing their way northwards into Scotland, and then out to the west, further spells of rain again across Wales, Devon and Cornwall. But across the southeast, something a little bit drier on Monday, with more in the way of cloud breaks to give some sunnier spells. Otherwise, highs of up to 11 degrees. Bye-bye for now.
Today, clouds overhead. Total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
I'm Andrew Pearce. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster's full of talk, but out here, it's the real world.
Am I allowed to talk now?
No, that's it. This is where it matters, real people and real lives. That's what politics is all about.
In fact, has Trump made a good start? No.
Straight answers, no spin, and just a couple of pints.
How many fingers have I got up?
About 10. So join me for Lee Anderson's Real World every Friday at 7 p.m, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live